And I always say, get back to the fundamentals. Continue doing what got you there.
In today's episode, Courtney and I sit down with Mick Hunt, the CEO of Premier Strategy Box. We're going to be talking everything sales, from what gets in the way of being successful, getting back to the basics, the fundamentals. If you want to be an expert at anything, you have to be an expert at the basics. We're going to get into some commercial insurance, into networking. We're going to get into how to build relationships and the importance of building relationships going on and moving into the future. All right. So with that being said, let's start the show. Hey, welcome to the Insurance Buzz. We are your hosts, Michael and Courtney Weaver, and we have a special guest with us today, Mick Hunt. What's going on, my man?
What's going on, Michael and Courtney?
Hi. I am jazzed about today because we're going to be talking some sales, and I love it.
Before we hopped on, I have to tell you, he was like rattling things off. I cannot wait to jam all about sales. I'm like, okay. So if you're open to that, Mick, that's where we're going to go. We're going to talk about what you need to know, how to improve, how to be a sales pro and not an amateur.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Going with that. So right before we got on here, Courtney asked a great question. Mick, who do you?
No, let me ask it because I ask it in a certain way. Okay.
You both aren't married or anything.
Yeah, you can definitely tell. I'm like, wait a minute, my turn to talk. Mick, who are you juiced up to work with?
I love salespeople, and I'm prefacing salespeople that are in a rut, right? It's like, I've got to this level. How do I get to the next level? Or I've just been battling objection upon objection. I need to redefine my sales process, or I need that kick in the butt. Those are my favorite salespeople to work with.
So what are you finding? Because as we were talking, everybody I feel goes through a rut. Sometimes it's multiple ruts. I've been there multiple times myself. What do you find in working with insurance producers that is the most common rut that they go through and have to overcome to get over the hump and start getting to those, achieving their goals?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that because we're going through it right now, right? It's year end and everyone's doing their next year's planning. That outside pressure, usually by the principal or leadership team, that pressure, that new carrot, that new goal, you have to rebalance. And when you've been doing your thing and you've been in a good groove, to all of a sudden now have a new goal, a new target, which we should have, right? It's mentally, how do I do that? Right? Like, how do I just did 600,000 of revenue, right? Now you're telling me my book needs to get to 1 million. Okay. How do I go rebalance that? Right? Like, how do I take these customers and get more? How do I find a new avenue? Or how do I really go micro into my niche? I see that a lot. And it's usually just external goals or standards, as I like to call them.
No, I would agree with you. So anytime you're going to, and that's the one great thing about sales is the starting line starts over every month. New year. All right. Coming up on a new year. But that's also sometimes the difficulty as well, because you can be doing really well. And then at the end of the year, it's a new starting line. So it doesn't matter how you did this year, because guess what? We all start all over again.
What have you done for me lately? Right? Courtney's favorite Janet Jackson song.
Oh, gosh. What have you done for me lately? How did you know I was going to sing that? Like, you just knew that I was going to go there. But okay.
It's written on your face.
I know. You knew it. You knew it. So I want to dive into this, though, because there's a difference between stress and pressure. And you bring up pressure, and I like pressure. I think stress is where I start to freak out. So I don't mind the end of the year push. I think where it comes out sideways is when it's done with stress or the jump is so big, like doubling your book of business that you go, what do I do? So how do we gear a salesperson to view pressure as a good thing and not have it come out of stress?
No, I mean, you're exactly right. Like, to me, I think if you can't handle pressure, that's when it becomes stress, right? When you don't see the path, that's when it becomes stress. And honestly, I think that's why people like Michael and Courtney and Mick exist, to let us take the pressure, because we're good at it, right? Like, we understand and we can give you that path, and we can give you the accountability and all the tactics and trainings that you need to get there. But when you don't have a Michael, a Courtney, or a Mick, that's when it becomes stress, right? To me, that's the biggest difference.
Yep. And I would echo that. And I would go also a step further, as far as we can give you the strategy, we can give you the processes, but you as the individual, that mindset, that's also, you're going to have to tweak that, because like what you're saying, Courtney, when you go from what he was saying, 600,000 to $1 million, if you instantly like tell yourself, oh man, I struggled this year, how am I going to get there next year? I can't do that. You're your biggest enemy. You are your own worst critic. And so not only do you have to have the strategy to get there and the processes and systems, but you have to make sure that your mindset is there as well. And so that's something you have to constantly be working on, because that's how we all get in ruts. Like our mindset gets jacked up. Our things that happen to us as kids, or our childhood wounds. All right. They sneak up on us. The two little voices.
Limiting beliefs.
Yeah. Limiting beliefs. The two little voices you have on your shoulders, or maybe I'm the only crazy one here, but I have Michael over here that's like, you're the best. You got this shit. And then I've got this Michael that's like, you can't do that. You're terrible. You're not even supposed to be in the room.
So somebody at the end of the year that's listening to this, where are we nudging them? How are we guiding them towards pressure and not stress?
So I'm a sports nut, and I always say, get back to the fundamentals. Continue doing what got you there. At the end of the day, I love football. All the gimmicks, all the spread offenses. At the end of the day, football is about blocking and tackling. That is the fundamentals of football. I don't care if you're throwing it or running it. You got to block them and you got to tackle them. Sales is the same way. It's all about building relationships and closing them. And if you focus on those two things, you don't have to have stress, right? Now, the game plan is, how do I get more opportunities for relationships? And that's what you need to focus on.
All right. Wait, before we go forward, who's your favorite? Are you an NFL fan? What football are we talking here?
Football and college. So I'm in the South. So, in the South, it's all about college football here, but NFL too. So I'm going to say my team, and I don't want anyone to jump to conclusions. I will tell you the truth. New England Patriots, down year. Don't make faces. I know most of you can't see Michael. He's
right,
giving
this
episode's
face. Over. Good knowing.
But here's the deal. My uncle, Stanley Morgan, is the Patriots' all-time leading receiver. He played in the 70s and 80s. So I was not a Patriot fan when Tom Brady and Belichick started winning Super Bowls.
Yeah.
I was a Patriot fan when Steve Grogan was the quarterback and Stanley Morgan was a receiver and Irving Fryer was a receiver. So I'm a diehard because I was born into it.
Hell yeah.
And then college, I'm a Tar Heel. So University of North Carolina.
Okay.
We'll wait until basketball season to talk about it.
Yeah. Save it. Yeah. Definitely.
Well, hey, I had to ask, because we are diehard Chiefs fans, being from Kansas City. And I was just telling Courtney this last night. I feel like the Chiefs are the early 2000s Patriots right now. We are the best team in the NFL. We are setting up to have a dynasty because of our quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. So, you know what?
Any opportunity to talk about the Chiefs, I swear, it's like, here we go.
So Die Hard, like Joe Montana, 1 year with the Chiefs, Die Hard.
Well, I was born in 88, not to give away my age or anything, but yeah, we've had a lot of bad years, like Bono era, Gerback. I wasn't a big fan of him. Alex Smith was a good quarterback, but we've had a lot of not great teams. But it feels good to be a winner now.
Back then too.
If I
go back and look at like 1998 10-year-old Michael footage, I do need to see you with a Steve Bono jersey on. Is all I'm saying.
Yep. All right.
Somewhere.
Dante Hall era was good. I'm not gonna lie though. Back in like 4th grade, I was also wearing. I was rocking an Emmitt Smith jersey back in the day.
See, the truth comes out. The truth comes out. The truth comes out.
Shit. Man, that was America's team back in the day, all right? Like, but I was also a Chiefs fan. But I had
you know what you sound like, Michael? You sound like insurance producers that just hop from niche to niche to niche because this niche is hot. I'm going in it because my buddy is writing it. See, that's what you sound like.
I know.
I was in 4th grade. Can we
There's no grace here. It's X's and O's.
All right.
So let's talk about the X's and O's.
Building relationships, because is that where you're going with this? Okay. I believe that is the number one thing that's being missed right now in the industry today. I feel like over the last 10 to 15 years, transactional selling with these internet leads has ruined the industry and set a lot of insurance agents up for a really difficult time. I believe we're at a pivotal point in the industry right now over the next 24 to 36 months to where if agents don't get on board with what we call transformational selling versus transactional selling and start building relationships with customers, that they may not have a career. And so I would love to know your opinion on that.
1,000% agree. The foundation of sales is relationships. And when you start going after low-hanging fruit, which is, your internet leads and you're trying to go direct to consumer, you're just a transaction, right? And you hit it on the head. If I'm a transaction, Michael, all I care is that you're the lowest price, right? That's all transaction selling is, which means that Michael isn't important. Michael really was an advisor, right? Michael just had the lowest price and that's where I went. So wholeheartedly, we've got to get back to relationships and we've got to get back to networking and meaning it. And by that, I mean this. I teach producers on the commercial side all day, every day. Within your niche, you got to go join an association. And I'm not talking about Chamber of Commerce and B&I. If your niche is restaurants, which was my personal niche when I was an agency owner, you better go join some restaurant associations or some hospitality associations and be a part of that niche, right? 15 or 10 years ago, Courtney, if you'd asked me what I did for a living, I would have said, I'm in the hospitality industry. And what I do is I provide risk management and insurance services for franchise restaurant owners. Every association I went to, I was not the insurance person. I was genuinely a part of the niche. I joined committees on the associations. So again, relationships. If you're a personal lines agent, go join PTAs, go join local committees in your local area, be involved. It's not an overnight success either way, commercial or personal lines. But if you're genuine about the relationship piece, success is going to happen whether you want it to or not. And we've got to get, again, I'm going to keep saying go back to the basics, but that's what I was taught, right? And it works.
Yeah. So if somebody listening is not comfortable, because I'm somebody who is an introvert by nature and I'm not 100% comfortable. So I have to really work at presenting myself and networking and creating those connections. So what advice would you give to somebody who's like me, who really has to work at building relationships, building the elevator pitch, coming across as confident?
Yep. So there's a couple of things you have to do, especially if you know your niche market, right? And I call this knowing the answers to the test. So if you know your niche market, again, I'm going to walk down franchise restaurants. I should know the pain that franchise restaurant owners have, right? It's 2023, almost 2024. Staffing is a major issue, right? Not understanding the actual cost of goods, not understanding how EPLI is a big exposure for franchise restaurant owners, not controlling their workers' comp. I know that those are pain points that they should have. So I'm building my elevator pitch around how I solve those pain points without saying I solve those pain points, right? So Michael, I'm literally going to say, I work with restaurant owners just like you that are concerned about increase in worker comp costs. They're frustrated with finding staffing all the time. They're upset about blah, blah, blah. I'm going to use those emotional words. And when I say I work with franchise restaurant owners just like you, what Michael is hearing is, oh, he solves these problems, but I don't have to go into features and benefits. So you should know the pain points and challenges that your ideal client or niche market has. And that's how you start crafting your elevator pitch and literally make it 15 to 30 seconds. 15 to 30 seconds because no one wants to hear you talk longer than that.
That's all you got. That's all you got.
It's so good.
And I love what you just said, emotional words, which are hitting on feelings. And with just what you just said, without them having to say anything, they are feeling seen, heard, and understood. Period. Which is all anybody wants.
Yeah.
Right.
That's all anyone wants. And so is that the recommendation? Because commercial is, I feel like that's a hot topic right now. Doesn't matter if you're on the captive side, the independent side. Carriers are pushing commercial insurance. And so many times we get questions as far as how should we determine our niche? And I think you just hit on this, but I want you to talk, even though we're talking about elevator pitch, if somebody's trying to determine their niche, are you going to recommend that they go into a niche that they have experience either working in or working with, and that's what they tackle first?
Yeah. Or something you're passionate about, right? Because you want to be able to speak the language of your niche and not sound like an insurance agent, because we can all sniff that out, right? Bad networking insurance agents have ruined it for all of us, right? Like going into chamber, BNI, let me quote you, I can solve this and that. Like that's ruined it for the good folks in the industry. So you've got to be able to have a niche that you're passionate about or can speak the language. And here's what I'm also going to tell you, and here's where I would start. Whether you're captive or independent, talk to your underwriters and find out what they are actually writing. True story, working with a producer 4 months ago, new producer into our program, passionate, he had his niche down, aviation. That he could talk the language. His dad was a former pilot. Couldn't have a broker or carrier to write aviation, though, within the agency. So I said, dude, we got to change this up. You're going to get shot down everywhere you go because, yeah, you can build a relationship, but then you can't deliver. And the worst thing that can happen is you're building relationships, you're getting opportunities, but then you can't deliver. So don't set yourself up for failure. So make sure that it's something that your underwriters are actually writing, and then go into where are the associations? How do I join them? What are the pain points that they have? Again, talk to your underwriters about all of that. What is it that I need to know? What questions should I be asking? Start there.
Yep. That's good. I know the captive carrier that we used to represent, one thing I would always talk to my business lines representative about was, what does the company want to target, not only this year, but for the next 3 to 5 years? And what are we most competitive with? And then that's the direction I would go. But that's, it's just reiterating what you just said. And I love that, because there's what are we writing that we know we're writing that we're not getting a lot of, right? Let me go there, right? Because everybody writes contractors. I'm not trying to get into that game. Yeah. Right? No, that's great. So, and I want to reiterate what you said earlier too, about going back to the basics. For those in the back, all right, I just want to reiterate this, because to be the master at anything, you have to be the master at the basics. So many times everyone wants to know, what's that next thing that gives
the
me
silver bullet?
What's the magic sauce? What's
Give me the silver bullet.
Okay. And it always goes back to the basics. Like, if you're not willing to master the basics and just become the master at your craft, it doesn't matter. Any special little thing that's out there is not going to help you get over the hump. You have to be willing to do the work.
Okay, well, let's break this down though, because if I'm listening to this and I'm like, yeah, I'm ready, let's do it. What gets in the way? What are the things that get in the way of being the master at your craft? I would love your guys' feedback on that.
So distractions. So low hanging fruit, saying, okay, I'm going to focus on, again, I'm going to make this up. I'm passionate. I'm going to do franchise restaurants. And then I get 3 calls with contractors that I know I can write. I know I can win. And I'm going to take my time and do that. Right. Because it's easy, because my principal needs me to do $30,000 this month. So let me just go get the quick stuff. Right. That usually is number 1. And then 2, the L being that loss. So nobody has 100% close ratio. And the moment you get a no, or the moment you don't get a meeting, you're ready to give up and say, no, it's not working. what Michael's been telling me and teaching me isn't working. I went back to the basics, and I got to know. Keep persevering. Keep persevering.
I love those.
Those are good ones. I think distractions is the number one thing that's always going to throw everybody off, either in your career, your personal life. I mean, look at the world we live in, and we have so much shit going on, from social media to anything and everything. And if you're not super intentional with your time, just like we were talking this weekend, if you look at our calendars, we time block everything is organized on the calendar. If it's on the calendar, it gets done. And yet somehow we'll still allow distractions to throw us off. So I think I would agree. Distractions are and if you're not, I'll go a step further to say you have to prioritize your growth and development. If you're not, you can say you want success. You can say you want to be the best salesperson. You can say you want to be number one in your organization. But if you're not putting in the work, if you're not training every day for 15 to 30 minutes, if you're not intentionally perfecting your craft every single day, if you're not making notes around how you could get better, investing in yourself, actions always speak louder than words, period.
Absolutely.
So that's where I go with that question. Like, you have to be intentional with your growth, because if you're not getting better, you're getting worse.
Yeah.
Oh, wholeheartedly. And I'll also add to that too. You've got to find and be yourself, right? Like it's easy to want to emulate or mimic someone, but it just doesn't work most of the time. And Courtney, you hit it earlier. Like, there is no secret sauce to success. There's not a secret to success, but there is a system to success. And I think every salesperson should be building their system. And whether you're a salesperson, business owner, whatever, build your system. And that's what you should be working on. To Michael's point, perfect it. Hone in on your skills. Take the time to get better as an individual, right? Build your system, because there is a system to success. Every successful person I know follows a system.
Yeah, whether they know it or not, there's always a process, whether it's a good one or a bad one.
So let's dive in, because
I want to give my 2 cents on this one, though, because I think
let's hear your 2 cents. Let's hear this.
I think there's also this notion that it's supposed to be easier than what it actually is. And I think that there's a lot, and I would say social media portrays a lot of Amazon Prime instant gratification in our society. And so we expect that we're going to come out and be the outlier. Like, we're going to be the one that's like what we see on social media that makes it big overnight or whatever. When in all reality, there is a sacrifice. There is some suffering to learning. I read somewhere that you don't get to get better and look good at the same time. And I think that is so true, is that we are afraid of being a beginner and looking bad. And you don't get to bypass that process, especially in sales. It all comes down to reps. This podcast, overcoming an objection. Mick, when you first started your business, there were reps that we all have to go through that we're like, God, this sucks. So I think it's this notion that we think that it's supposed to be easier than what it is, when that's just part of the process. That would be my thing. In addition to the distractions, the feeling the L and actually absorbing it and creating an identity around it and not being yourself. I would say that too.
I love it. That was great. That was worth more than 2 cents, Courtney. That was a few dollars.
I was going to say 100. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go.
You hit on so many valid points right there.
Thank you.
So many, because I feel lucky that I didn't grow up in an era. I didn't get social media, Facebook, till I was in college. All right. And so, but you have a lot of the younger generation that they grow up seeing these instant wins and seeing people on their best day. And I think any sales industry you're in, sales is not easy. Sales is extremely difficult. And so, but I think all of us would agree that success is built on L's. You are going to experience way more losses than you ever do dubs. but you only show people the dubs usually. And that's what social media is. And that's what I think that's what you anticipate when getting into a career, opening a business, getting into the industry. Mm-hmm. And when you get kicked, it hurts.
Yeah. And and you think about too, even going back to like transactional sales and transformational sales, if success comes super easy and it's super quick, my natural reaction is that it's not going to last because and maybe not, and maybe I could be completely wrong, but I feel like there is a price to pay. Like you have to become a certain person who can deal with adversity, who can deal with the dip, who can constantly build their confidence even on the bad days. So,
well, you know my feelings on internet leads. I think they're trash garbage. It's what's led us to the hard market we're in right now. But
totally
we don't have to get on that rant right now. But so one question I always get, Mick, is the relationships. I find a lot of people struggle with relationship building. And so is there a series of questions or any type of formula that you recommend using when building rapport with a prospect that you know nothing about?
Yeah. Don't ask insurance or product questions early on, right? So my first two questions are the same every time. Tell me what you love about your current agent, Michael. Because I want to make sure the things you love, I also can do, right? And then, Michael, what do you wish your current agent did better? And that's when I shut up and listen because I'm getting the answer of why we're here, right? Because when you have that initial meeting, whether it's face-to-face, phone call, whatever, there's a reason. Because no one wakes up in the morning and says, you know what? I want to call Courtney just to say hello, right? I want to call Courtney just to say hi, and maybe she'll offer me a quote, but I don't really care. I just want to say hello. People don't do that in our space. So if someone is taking the time to meet with you about insurance, you got to figure out why you're there. So I want to know what you love about your current agent. What do you wish your current agent did better? Tell me what a successful relationship with your insurance agent and carrier look like. Right? Then I ask about their goals, like not your insurance goals. What are your business goals? What's your 3-year vision for your business? Where are you trying to go? If it's personal lines, what's your 3-year home plan look like? Like where's your life going in the next 3 years? So I don't want to sound like the typical insurance agent. I want to talk to that customer, get to know them or that prospect and really get to know them, their goals, their visions. But most importantly, I'm trying to figure out why I'm at the table in front of you. I have to know that first. Because every prospect, maybe you shouldn't move forward with, right? If Michael loves his current agent because it's his spouse, then I'm not going to win.
Why are we talking
Depends
today?
on the day. It depends on the day.
Right, exactly. But I promise you, if you ask those questions early, you will eliminate the best friend that's an agent, because we see that. Oh, my agent goes to church with me, right? You're being set up, right? You're being set up for leverage, because what Courtney's told Michael is, hey, go out and get some quotes and make my job easy. Or Courtney's trained Michael that if he comes back with the quote, oh, she's been lazy for 5 years, now I'll requote this for you, right? Or I'll see if there's something we can do. So producers, salespeople, don't get caught in the trap of being leveraged or being the homework assignment for someone else, because I promise you it happens.
Yep. So you're looking for the pain points early on in the conversation.
Uncovering pain. I have to understand why I'm here. And I've got to make sure you articulate your pain points to me, because when you say something, it feels a little bit stronger than just keeping it up in your head.
Yep.
Right? It's this therapist, right? Therapist asks you a couple of questions, you do all the talking, and before you realize it, you've been there for an hour and you're in tears crying. Oh, sorry. That was me last week. My fault. But therapy, that's what it is, right? They're keeping you in pain, getting you to talk about your pain instead of keeping it bottled in, because when it's bottled in, it's not a priority. But when you can think about it and say it, you're telling yourself, oh, this is something I need to fix. And that's what sales is about. That's what uncovering pain is about.
Did you just hear, Mick? You are the therapist. Ask questions and let the prospect talk. Find the problem. When they answer at high level, tell me more about that. Why is that important to you? Why is that a struggle? Or why did you love that? Like,
how did that make you feel?
Dig into it, baby. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Oh, we should be doing this.
I could nerd out with you all day. This is good stuff. I love this.
Mick, I have to, because this has been such a great conversation. How did you get into, was there a moment where you realized sales, I feel like sales calls to people. Do you remember that moment where you're like, this is for me?
So there was a moment when I realized I wanted to start my own agency. So I started in insurance out of college, and it was literally my friends were trying to find jobs. I got interviewed by a nationwide insurance agent to be a sales manager. Didn't know nothing about insurance or sales, right? But it was a job, and we ended up doing really well. We became one of the largest nationwide agencies in the country. But that moment for me, Courtney, was this. He was going on trips to Banff, to Paris, to Rome, to Atlantis, and I was going on trips to Atlanta, right? Atlantis and Atlanta are totally not the same. But what I realized, and it wasn't a bad thing, but I was helping someone live their dream, and that dream was coming true tenfold. And I said, it's time for me to do this. And so that was the thing that was that aha moment when I looked at, he just went to Paris. I just went to Atlanta. Something's got to change.
Powerful.
Is there anything, before we wrap, any resource or book or anything that you read that completely changed your career?
There's been so many. That's a great question, Courtney. If I go back, anything by Jeffrey Gitomer was powerful. So, the little red book of selling. Yep. I got to meet him, and so that was awesome. Maxwell and those guys have some good things on leadership. Recently, I just finished 10X is easier than 2X.
Great book.
Love that book.
Yeah. So, any of those, I'm always learning, right? Like some people say they're always reading. Well, if you're reading and not taking anything, you're just reading, right? So I'm always learning, but I'm learning something new monthly. I'm trying to improve not 1% or 10%. Like every day I'm trying to improve 3 times. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. 3 times better than the person I was last month. So.
Amen. Mick, you'll appreciate this story. So the very first time I picked Courtney up on our very first date, I had Brian Tracy, The Psychology of Selling, going on, turned it up as she got in the vehicle. She's like, what is this? I'm like, this is The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy. She's like, we need to listen to the radio.
Yeah, that's what we did. That was our first day.
First date.
On CDs. So.
Love it.
I listened to that thing every day on the way to work and way home from work for 18 months in a row. Brian Tracy was my mentor without him even knowing he was my mentor.
So.
And apparently for any singles out there.
That's it.
Right?
Shit.
Not only selling, but dating and vice versa.
That's right.
Okay, before we wrap though, because we talked about the good, and I never asked this question, but I feel called to ask this question. Is there any book on sales that you read that you're like, I do not agree, don't waste your time, this is trash?
Yeah, but I've never quantified those. I probably see more bad sales books than I actually do good ones. You're going to make me go back and actually name them now.
No. You don't have to relive it. If it's a pain, we'll keep the Band-Aid on there. We don't have to rip that Band-Aid off. That's okay.
No. But what I'm saying is because they're so horrible, they're not even in memory of who the author was or the title of the book. But there's so many that are just god awful. God awful. I think the 3 of us could really do a book on debunking sales myths, because there's a lot of bad ones.
Stay tuned. That actually releases in 2024.
I actually just wrote a book that will be debunking one of the myths in sales. So I'm pretty pumped about it.
It's cliffhanger now. Dun, dun.
The myth of doing more. More is not always the answer when it comes to sales.
No.
So
More just makes busy, and busy never wins.
See, I told you I could nerd out with him all day long, man. I love this.
Mick, this has been so much fun.
Mick, if somebody wanted to follow you, connect with you, work with you, what's the easiest way for them to do that?
Michael and Courtney Weaver, because apparently we're joining companies now. So just reach out to Michael and Courtney. So Mick, mick.hunt@mystrategybox.com, or on LinkedIn, just Mick Hunt. There's not a lot of me out there. So
yeah. I got to tell you, your LinkedIn, I appreciate it. You put out a lot of great content. So if any of you are on LinkedIn, I'd highly recommend giving Mick a follow. He puts out a lot of tremendous content specifically for insurance industry. So it's extremely beneficial. So Mick, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you. And for all of those of you who are listening, thank you so much for your support. We know that time is the most valuable and important asset that we all have. And we appreciate you taking time out of your day and spending it with us and Mick today. So as always, go out and make it great.